Wrestling fans, and welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast. For the next 2 hours, we will bring you the latest pro wrestling news, in-depth analysis of all your favorite promotions from across the globe, and much, much more. We will also bring you exclusive interviews with the greatest professional wrestling personalities on the local, national, and international levels. If you want to follow the Wrestle Talk podcast, check us out online at www.wrestletalkpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And now, it's time for the reigning, defending, undisputed leader in pro wrestling podcast, the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. I am Luke Roberts, and tonight we're going to have a great program here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. At 7:30, we're going to be joined by Stuart Kemp, longtime professional wrestler and personality in the Pacific Northwest. We're also going to be having the FWWC segment tonight, Snippets of Truth with Big Daddy P, and of course, our second interview with referee H.D. Daniels is going to be taking place here at about 8:15. If you're enjoying tonight's show, make it a point to send us messages here. We will try to post them as we get them here. We also have, ladies and gentlemen, once again, as a reminder, as we were on the show last week, we got Susie Haas here. And again, joining us from the wonderful, beautiful snow-capped mountains of Topeka, Kansas, we have our guest from last week, Drew Chandler, on the program, tuning in here tonight. Again, if you enjoyed tonight's program, make it a point to send our program out to all your friends. Make sure to share us on all forms of social media. Also, hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling right here on the program. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know last week we had a lot of things going on here. We had a lot of surprises, but I got to tell you right now, tonight's first surprise, and hopefully there's not going to be as many as last week, but I'm going to tell you right now, for weeks now, we have been waiting with eager anticipation the return of the man who knows exactly what it takes to make the Wrestle Talk podcast run like a fine precision watch. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight, he is back here on the program. Before we get any introductions, before we get to any sponsors, before we get to the national anthem or high spots or anything else related, I would be remiss if I didn't welcome back to the program the one and only Hardcore Hoss. Hardcore Hoss, how are you doing, my friend? It has been a long, long time.
I am so glad to be back, boy. I tell you, it's been a while since I've been here. We've been moving and stuff, and finally got set up and ready to go, and just happy to be back here on the program. Just so excited to be here.
Well, you know something right now, Hoss? I got to tell you something. I'm noticing in your background. And again, you've made a few additions since the last time we saw you. I noticed that NWO lunchbox. Yeah. And you know something? I got to tell you, and I'm going to roll over here for just a minute. I don't think I've shared this with anybody. But I have right here. I am also a lunchbox guy. And I have my own Mankind lunchbox right here. So you're not alone when it comes to lunchboxes about professional wrestling. You and I are on the same page. So, Hoss, I got to ask you, how you doing tonight? I mean, again, it's been a while since you've been on the program. But tonight, I think we're going to have a great show.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I have been watching, though, even though I haven't been at the boards. You know, it took a while to get everything set up and hooked up and ready to go. But I'm finally back and back behind the boards here. Chris Rodell did one heck of a job, and, you know, he got a real crash course, you know, thrown in the fire. And he did a heck of a job, though, and you know, kudos to Chris, and thank you to him for filling in for the whole time that I was gone. I know he's been here weeks on end and really deserves a night off, so thank you to him, and just happy to be back here with the Wrestle Talk family.
And again, Haas, we couldn't agree with you more. It's great to have you back here. I know you're going to be talking FWWC later tonight. And of course, Drew Chandler would be remiss if we don't talk about Richard Douglas, but we're not going to talk about Richard Douglas right now. We could talk about the Lumberjacks who are tuning in here tonight. We got Luke Justice that's here. And I'm going to tell you right now, remember, if you want your message, if you want to have your information, so to speak, if you want to be acknowledged for what you're doing and being a part of this Wrestle Talk podcast episode, you got to make it a point to actually identify yourself. Otherwise, it's just going to pop you up as Facebook user. And we want to make sure we give all of our great viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast the opportunity to be recognized for their great comments and their great commentary. I mean, we've had a lot of great over the last couple of weeks. Haas, I think you would agree with me in the idea that a lot of the high spots topics have generated a lot of discussion here on the Wrestle Talk podcast.
Oh, yes, definitely. You know, like I say, I have been watching while I was gone. You guys have had a lot of great conversation. A lot of great topics have been discussed, and, you know, just looking forwards to the discussions tonight.
Well, right now, and again, I thank you for bringing up that message here. And again, make it a point to share all your information with your friends and things of the sort. Make it a point to share us out on social media. Go ahead and bring up that last message again, Hardcore Haas. We do want to give a shout out to our compatriot, the Night Owl. I know he's taking care of some family issues over the course of the past few days. And like I said, I believe his goal is he's going to be back here on next week's program right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. I know that a lot of the viewers have been sending their well wishes in relationship to all the things going on with the death in his family, his grandmother recently passing away, and things going on. Again, we want to give a shout out to the Night Owl, and like I said, hopefully he plans to be back here next week. And finally, Luke Justice has his icon up here on the screen, and he has to make sure to reference the being the longest reigning FWWC world champ in history. That's great and well and good. We're going to talk a little more about that during the FWWC tonight.
Not sure if still nobody knows who he is.
Yeah, well, that's individual opinions here. So you know something, before we get too much farther along, I actually, for once on the Wrestle Talk podcast, and I know, Hardcore Hosh, you haven't had an opportunity to meet this gentleman, but one of the things we strive at the Wrestle Talk podcast is trying to make the Wrestle Talk podcast known across the country. And tonight, we can proudly say that the Wrestle Talk podcast is being heard not only on the internet, but it's being heard from coast to coast. We've got Hardcore Hoss in the beautiful East Coast, and joining us, making a formal introduction now, because, like I said, I don't think you two have formally been introduced. Ladies and gentlemen, Hardcore Hoss is going to be introduced to my broadcast colleague this evening, the one and only Justin Wade. Justin, how are you doing out on the West Coast this evening? I know you're representing your Seattle Seahawks. How are things going out on the West Coast?
Oh, West Coast is going great right now. Just the temperature's dropping a little bit. I've seen the Midwest. You guys got some freeze advisories going on. I got to watch out for the folks out there. So I gave them a call, and they're like, "Well, we got all the vegetables covered for the year." But then I heard it's supposed to get in the 80s soon, back again in a couple days. So I don't know what the hell's going on with your guys' weather out there. Right now, we still got smoke advisories from fires east of us, near a little closer to Spokane, and we're getting the smoke here in Seattle from it. I saw, just to let you guys know, I'm trying to represent the show out here in the Pacific Northwest. I saw myself a lucha show Friday night. Company's called Lucha Volcanica, run by a veteran promoter. His name is Jose Gomez, and he's been running since he's in his 40s now. And he's been working and running shows since he was in his middle teens. It's a fantastic show. They had about 5 matches, but the weird thing was it was 10-minute to 15-minute intermissions between each match. So. But a good show. It made me feel like I was in an ECW arena. That's how when they were pushing the luchadors back in the day. So,
well, I got to tell you, Justin, you had an opportunity. You sent me a few pictures and a few bits of information about the show, and I got to tell you right now, it looks like it was an awesome time. And didn't you say that the numbers on that event were extremely high for out there in the Pacific Northwest for a Lucha Libre event?
It was, I believe, it was between 850 and 1,000. But they had beer and liquor vendors. They had food trucks on the outside selling They had multiple tables worth of merchandise. It was a very fan friendly show that day. It was fun all around.
Well, you know what, Justin? You talk about being fun all around. Tonight, it's going to be fun all around here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. We got Stuart Kemp, longtime professional wrestling personality, and a man you should be able to identify with pretty well, being a fellow Pacific Northwesterner. Is going to be joining us here in just a little bit. We're also going to have H.D. Daniels joining us here. Get an opportunity to see professional wrestling from some different perspectives here tonight. And speaking of which, go ahead, Justin. I know you've got something else you want to add here real quick as well.
1 second. I came in a little late, and I apologize. I had other ventures to deal with before I got here. Can you, Rob, introduce me to the other host? I just want to be respectful.
I'm having a moment. I mean, it's one of those things. Hardcore Hoss, this is Justin Wade.
Nice to meet you, man.
Hoss. He is the man behind the boards. I know you're familiar. We talked earlier about our good friend Chris Rodell. Hardcore Hoss is usually the man, as they talk about in radio term, the man behind the ones and twos. He's the man that knows our technology like nobody's business.
Thank you.
He's a very knowledgeable professional wrestling fan, but he also follows a lot of promotions on the East Coast, WDWA. I believe, John, were you a Covey Pro guy like our broadcast colleague Nightmare Jones?
Yes, I did see Covey Pro, EPPW. There's been a lot of them out this way that I have followed in the past. So,
and like I said, as we talked about earlier on, we're taking the show national tonight here, ladies and gentlemen. You got East Coast, West Coast, you got Midwest. We got a lot of great things to talk about. But one thing we've got to do is we got to thank all of our great fans and all of our great viewers who are watching the program here tonight. And also, Hardcore Hoss, you be so kind to bring up those great sponsors who help bring forth this program each and every week right here on all forms of social media. We're going to go ahead and bring up and acknowledge our great sponsors, Royal Mills Transportation in the Kansas City area. If you need transportation, Royal Mills Transportation is your go-to service. Rathbun Engraving, home of those great Wrestle Talk podcast mugs, available for $20. Nobleman's Barber Lounge, Kansas City. Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall. Our good friend at Interstate 70 Sports Media, Jeremy Karp's already checked in here this evening live from the gym working out. Little Popeye Designs, the ones behind those great Wrestle Talk podcast tumblers, and the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group, which you're going to be hearing from in just a little bit right here tonight on the program. Now, gentlemen, and I got to tell you this, Hoss, I don't know. Chris has really kind of taken this to the next level. But I want to see what you're going to bring to the table because, as you know, Hardcore Hoss, each and every week, before we get the show started, before we get everything taken care of, to keep things official, to keep things on the level, and to show our respects to the greatest country in the world. And I'm going to double check here. Hardcore Hoss, are you about ready? I know you're looking for it. Please tell me you got your American flag. Please tell me.
I was looking for them. I'm not sure where I put them.
Oh, no. Well, ladies and gentlemen, even though we don't have our American flag to be able to show tonight, what we do ask is before we get tonight's show started, is you please remove your caps and please, in respect to the greatest country in the world, pay homage to the greatest country with our national anthem. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking part in our national anthem. I got to tell you, Justin, last week you came in a little bit later. You didn't have to experience the national anthem last week.
Oh, I experienced it. I just wanted to mention that this rendition was a very, very great moment in American history. It just, those lungs that Roseanne Barr expelled for that night really exemplified my love for America. So.
Well, and right now, again, Hardcore Hoss, I got to tell you, do you feel like you're back on the bicycle now that you've got the national anthem out of the way?
Oh, always, I might be a little slow here and there tonight, I still got to remember where things are, but, I'm getting there.
Okay, well, Hoss, I got to tell you right now, Justin knows what time it is. You know what time it is. I know what time it is. We're going to actually, since you just came back to the program here tonight, we're going to go ahead and let you do something you normally don't get to do. And that is we're going to let you, Hardcore Hoss, introduce tonight's High Spot segment.
All right. Well, as always, we have some of the most my mouth don't want to work now. We always have some of the best questions around and some of the most talked about things going around in professional wrestling today. And there is just so much to talk about. And let's just get to it. Here's our man, DJ Money, to introduce the High Spot segment.
Mic check, mic check. Yeah! All right. Wrestle Talk Podcast. DJ Money. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome to High Spots, where we pop news like clear chops. We talk shop, coming through the screens of a laptop. And non-stop like a runner speakers of blacktop. We hit hard like chair shots and backdrops. Like a clock flash, look like a belly flop. Now that's hard. We up to speed while they stay slow. Wrestle Talk Podcast, now they know. We about to start the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's High Spots time, and I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. I just got a message on my cell phone from the one and only, the Maestro Jeremy Karp, and he told me that he was actually has that on his playlist when he's actually working out at the gym. And again, I'm going to tell you right now, DJ Money bringing us into the High Spot segment each and every Tuesday night. Also, as a reminder, too, if you get an opportunity, make it a point, check out DJ Money. He's also getting ready to start getting back into the world of graphic design. He's going to be, whether you need pictures, you need photos, you need album art, you name it, make it a point to check out DJ Money. If you want more information, go ahead and ask a member of the Wrestle Talk podcast staff, and we'll get you hooked up with DJ Money. Now, guys, I got to tell you, kind of a unique week in the world of professional wrestling. We had a lot of different things to bring up in our meeting earlier in the week. So, Hardcore Hoss, if you be so kind, let's go ahead and kind of get the wheels rolling here, and let's throw our first High Spots question up for the evening. Really anticipating what's here. And again, this one just being announced literally minutes ago. It was announced that Chris Jericho has signed another 3-year contract with AEW. What are your thoughts? Justin, I'm going to throw this to you. I know that you followed Chris Jericho for a number of years in his career.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about Chris Jericho signing another 3 years with AEW?
Well, it excites me. He's giving back to the business. And I really appreciate what he's doing. He can be outspoken at times, but when it comes down to it, he gives back. He gives back like how the veterans usually do. He believes in the company AEW. It's a good sign that you got Jon Moxley to 5 and him for 3. He's gonna tonight they got a show. Aren't they doing a show tonight, Luke?
They're actually, matter of fact, while we're at it here, just to give you an idea, it's going to be a crazy night because we have NXT live on the USA Network, and we have Tuesday Night Dynamite.
Yeah,
if we have anything big going on, we'll try to keep you updated on that right here. But go ahead, Justin. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up right here on my video feed and see if I can catch a little bit of information about AEW.
Yeah.
If maybe it's being brought up, but go ahead and please continue.
No, what I was saying though, tonight you got Jericho and Dalton Castle, and this is a lot of people's, fantasy matchup, and they're going to tear the house down, these two. And Jericho's going to make this guy, Dalton, who's well known in the Ring of Honor. He's bringing him to the national stage now, being on TBS for Dynamite tonight, and it's going to be a real good thing. And there's going to be a lot of good matchups coming up with Jericho. We already got Jericho and Bryan Danielson, and they always bring it. And they also had, Moxley and Jericho. That's always going to be a barn burner. But I think it's a very good thing for the industry that Jericho signed for 3 more years. He's going to give back to the company, and hopefully with him being the Ring of Honor champion, they give it to him for a while, and he has some 5-star matches with some new Ring of Honor guys, past Ring of Honor guys, and maybe some cross promotion between Ring of Honor champion and AEW champion.
I couldn't agree with you more, Justin. I mean, I'm sitting here right now trying to get things taken care of. Right now, the Don Tony D'Angelo making his way to the ring on NXT. I got to tell you right now, the first thing I got to say, and you brought it up too, the idea of where you get to see the Ring of Jericho champion, the Ocho himself, Chris Jericho, whether you call him the Painmaker, Le Champion, Lionheart, whatever you call him, the Wizard, whatever you call him, Chris Jericho is going to be a huge asset to AEW down the road. And I think him signing for 3 years is a great idea. But tonight, like you said, Justin, I'm excited. You have Chris Jericho and the man from Planet Peacock himself, Dalton Castle. I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't know if it's just me being a Ring of Honor fan, I'm going to predict it right now. When those two men meet in the ring, an upset in the eyes of many, and Dalton Castle becomes the new Ring of Honor World Champion. I'm going to throw it to you, Hardcore Hoss. Your thoughts of Chris Jericho signing another 3-year deal with AEW?
You know, it's really not a surprise that he signed another 3-year deal. At least I didn't think so, because, I mean, I didn't think there was any chance of him going anywhere else. If he wasn't there, he would probably retire, and I don't think he's ready to hang his boots up anytime soon. So, but yeah, I do look forward to the matchups that this really does present, signing the new contract and everything, and look forward to what he's going to have to do here in the coming future and everything. And,
well, I can tell you right now, gentlemen, I think we're all in agreement here that Chris Jericho, the leader of the Jericho Appreciation Society, is signed another 3-year deal. I think it's definitely going to be a great matchup, a great fit for AEW, and a great thing. And right now they're mentioning the matchup between interim world champion Toni Storm taking on Hikaru Shida for the interim women's world championship. A great match. Justin, I know you got more that you want to add here too.
I just got to add, I'm getting tired of this interim stuff. You know, when wrestlers have been injured and stuff in the past or they've been suspended, they have to give up the title. I hate this interim stuff. And I know it bothers Toni Storm. I know it's bothering her because, you know, she won the belt, in a fatal 4-way. Am I correct, Luke?
Correct.
And she proved herself against 4 of the top contenders. And she still has to throw around that she's interim till Thunder Rosa comes back. I don't know what the situation is with Thunder, but she'll have to. I believe she should work for it. She should have to get back into contendership and not just be able to, come back. In '93, Michaels was stripped of the Intercontinental title. They had a 20-man battle royal. Razor and Rick Martel were the final 2, and they made them wrestle at the next Monday Night Raw. They didn't make him interim Intercontinental champion. He was the undisputed Intercontinental champion, and he defended it, and then he defended it against Michaels at WrestleMania 10 in a ladder match. I just don't like this interim stuff.
Well, Justin, I gotta go with the idea though, and again, this is one of those I think where you're seeing the lines blur between MMA and professional wrestling. The MMA world has brought forth the idea of the interim world champion. Yeah. I believe boxing to a certain extent is it, and I'm kind of in the same mindset. This
is pro wrestling. It's not MMA.
That is true. That is true. And like I said, right now, I mean, to be honest with you, and sitting here having that match being brought up here, they brought up an interesting graphic with Hikaru Shida, 53 weeks as women's world champion in AEW. That is an outstanding feat in today's professional wrestling world. And to have someone with that kind of quality and ability taking on Toni Storm, that definitely is going to lend some credibility to Toni Storm in any shape or form when it comes down to what happens tonight as a part of Tuesday Night Dynamite. Now, gentlemen, we got a lot of movement, a lot of comings and goings here in the world of professional wrestling. Hardcore Hoss, let's go ahead and throw another one up here. And we had a couple different discussions here. Let's go ahead and see what our randomizer is going to bring up here. What are your thoughts on the association of JBL and Baron Corbin? I got to tell you right now, and this is going to sound strange, I actually had an opportunity to have a few moments with JBL at the Cauliflower Alley Club. And I'm going to tell you right now, I watched the match last night, and I'm a pro wrestling fan as well as a longtime in-ring competitor. Did not get behind it at all. I mean, JBL went above and beyond what needed to be done. But I'm going to tell you right now, to me, it really kind of fell flat last night. Justin, I'm going to go ahead and turn things to you here on this. JBL, Baron Corbin, yes, in the middle, no. What are your thoughts?
No, and I like JBL as much as everybody else. He's a modern day Stan Hansen with a Ted DiBiase $1 Million Man twist. It's nice that they brought him back to television, but I believe he might outshine Baron, and I don't think it helped it didn't help Dolph any way, sort of form by having him go down to the newly reinvigorated Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin, I don't believe needs a mouthpiece. He can get heat way on his own. And I just think that JBL might distract from his rise up the echelon for whatever title he goes for. I don't think it's a good pairing, but they're going to try it out. But I just think JBL is going to outshine Baron, I believe Baron's a very good talker and doesn't need a mic piece. Now, I'm not insulting JBL. He deserves, to be here as much as any other legend. But I just think he might outshine Baron.
Well, I can tell you right now, and we got two completely different points of view here. That's why I love the Wrestle Talk podcast every Tuesday night. You've got Assad, who's making the comment of JBL will lead Baron Corbin to a secondary championship in the WWE. And then you have the one right before it from Luke Justice. Two great comments here. I wish Baron Corbin would come back as the lone wolf, and then follows it up with, I don't like it. Corbin can stand on his own. I'm going to tell you right now, to me, Justin, you and I have been friends for a long time. And I'm going to tell you right now.
Almost 20 years.
I agree with you, but I don't agree with Luke Justice here. To me, I think it's one of those where everybody says, oh, Baron Corbin can do this. Baron Corbin can do that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, Baron Corbin has had opportunities. And to me right now, I think the lone wolf was more letting his action show in the ring. And I think right now, I just don't see Baron Corbin being able to even remotely keep up with a JBL. Now, Hardcore Hoss, I want to throw it to you. You've seen a lot of different views here between Justin and myself, as well as the viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast. What are your thoughts about this association between JBL and Baron Corbin?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this association between the two of them. In all honesty, I think they have, for a while now, kind of had Baron Corbin in a role where, he's looked, more or less looked weak, I think, in my opinion. Yeah, they've kind of had a jobbing to other people, and he did have the run as Happy Corbin where he was winning some matches here and there, but even then, the gimmicks they've been giving him just don't fit him very well, I don't think, and just I haven't been a big fan of him. So I'm hoping that they use him properly. But I don't see a reason to bring JBL into it.
Justin, go ahead. I know you.
Yeah, I had one more. You know what? I may be wrong, and they could put a spin on it like they did with Morocco and Fuji back in the day. Corbin, I can see being a second tier champion. I could see him being either the IC or the US. And they could put a spin on it. Back in the day, Fuji and Morocco, they got some good heat. They also had some good parodies between the two. And, JBL and Corbin do have a sense of humor to them. So they could spin this and, make some money with the heel heat, also with the parody portion of the tandem.
Oh, I get you. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap it up here. Luke Justice bringing up the comment. Baron puts over Madcap. He puts over McAfee. He did the whole Corbin thing, and now it's time for him to shine on his own. I think the only way to put this is time will tell. I mean, to me, I think last night was, and again, we've had other comments that are brought up here, and we appreciate all the comments bringing up here. The poor man's Baron Corbin was perfect and funny to watch on WWE programming. We get it, but again, it really didn't. It just kind of, something wasn't right last night.
It's the first night.
Yeah, it might be like I said, it's one of those where, much like in the world of pro football, when you get a quarterback who's brand new to the game, they've got to get a few reps in before they really kind of get everything synced up. And again, that might be what it's going to be. Now, at this time, we're going to have some more high spots questions here. in just a little bit. But Justin, I want to go ahead and take a minute here and get ready to introduce our fans of the Wrestle Talk podcast to our first guest this evening. Here's a gentleman that I had the opportunity to actually sit down and meet in person for the first time at the Cauliflower Alley Club just a couple of weeks ago. And having the opportunity to sit down in a variety of different places, whether it was the banquet, playing cribbage, walking out on Fremont Street, and enjoying the socialization, this man has spent pretty close to the same amount of time as I have inside the squared circle. He knows a ton about professional wrestling, past, present, and future. And I got to tell you, it is my honor and privilege to have this man join us this evening on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Let's go ahead and hit the introduction music for our first guest tonight here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast, Stuart Kemp. Let's go ahead and hit that. By many names, by many monikers, many personalities. Stuart, I got to say, on behalf of Justin and myself, I want to welcome you here tonight to the Wrestle Talk podcast.
I'm glad to be here. I'll tell you right now, that almost gave me a heart attack during that music.
Yeah, it was a little loud on my end too. So.
That's all right, though. I appreciate it. Though I had such a great time. I just am sitting in my car right now. Just was visiting my wife, who's in the hospital right now dealing with non-small cell lung cancer. And she's going to be in for treatments starting later this week. So, there's that. And of course, I'm not as able as I'd like to be, just because, I've had to deal with the strokes myself. So it's been fun.
Well, Stuart, I got to tell you first thing on, again, having the opportunity to talk with you again this past week. I mean, here at the Wrestle Talk podcast, want to wish continued success regarding your rehabilitation, and also keeping things in your wife and our thoughts as we go through things here. Again, knowing lung cancer as well as I did. My father, and Justin's known my father for many years as well. He had a almost half a lobe removed many years ago before he passed away. And again, lung cancer is not something to wait around on. Now, the first thing I want to throw out here to you is this. And again, you and I got to ask you. You have been known as Stuart Kemp, but you also got known by the name of Bulldog Bob Brown Jr.
Yes.
Now, a lot of the viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast may not be familiar. For those of us that are familiar, I know you in the Pacific Northwest in Canada have had an opportunity. He did spend a good amount of time here. I believe it was in the Kansas City in the Central States territory, made many trips here to St. Louis. I got to ask you, what motivated you to take the moniker of Bulldog Bob Brown Jr.?
Well, it's a funny thing. It all started because of another wrestler who has unfortunately passed as well. Todd Olson, a.k.a. Ole Olson, had wrestled with Bob many a time in the Maritimes, and thought that my mannerisms were very similar to that of Bob. I had known Bob for many years when he was wrestling for Stampede Wrestling and booking for them as well, and then a little bit through Vancouver office, but not as much. But it was there that they that the sort of lineage sort of came to be, and I ran with it a little bit. I didn't try to be Bob Brown. There's nobody that could be Bob Brown. I mean, there's just simply no way. But I tried very hard to pay tribute to what he had accomplished, and so I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
Well, Stuart, I got to tell you right now, he gets a name. When I had an opportunity, my brother spent many years in the wrestling industry as well, and the idea of having someone who can make the connection and having the mannerisms and the style that you did inside the squared circle. I mean, that not only gives you, as you said, gives you the opportunity to have a great deal of respect from the wrestling community, but also to be likened to someone the likes of Bulldog Bob Brown. Now, I got to ask you, and this is going to sound kind of strange because I feel very fortunate in the fact that many years ago, Justin had the opportunity to train under myself into the world of professional wrestling. I got to ask you, being from the Pacific Northwest, having made many journeys into Canada, what was it like for you breaking into the world of professional wrestling? I mean, I know in the St. Louis area back in the day, it was a very selective business to get into. What was it like when you talk about like the Don Owens, you talk about the promotions like the Stampede Wrestling, among others? What was it like for you to get into the world of professional wrestling in your part of the country?
It's a very unusual thing. I got started in a very unusual way of getting involved. I had been a fan for many years, going to shows and so on and so forth. I went to a Stampede Wrestling show in Vancouver, British Columbia, and there was a guy named Terry Feder, who was the sort of liaison guy for Stampede Wrestling there. And he was talking to me a little bit about times. I said, well, if you ever need somebody to help you on the shows, just let me know. And as it turns out, one of the times we were in Vancouver, and he came up to me and said, we don't have our announcer coming into Mission, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, tomorrow. Would you like to do it? And of course, I was thrilled. And so I made my debut April 30th, 86 in Mission, British Columbia as the announcer for Stampede Wrestling. And but before that, I had an opportunity to do some radio stuff. I was trying to get the boys booked on radio stuff and so on in the Northwest. And we had a lot of struggles with them. It's just the radio business was very, very tough. It was, football and basketball and that sort of thing. And there's one guy had come in to talk about wrestling one time and was touting that he was going to bring all these guys from Stampede Wrestling in there and so on and so forth, and never did. And so, of course, that got the host really upset about everything. And so they didn't say very nice things about wrestling at all. And I came back to the guy and said, I don't know who this guy is. I said, I would love to have the opportunity to bring you some guys in. Here's some numbers, here's some names and so on. And the guy that was running the show contacted me a little bit later and said, all these numbers that you gave me pan out. We're gonna take it again, and would you like to be on the show? And so that was really my introduction to wrestling, which was October 9th, 1985, where I had an opportunity to speak with both Bruce Hart and Tom McGee. Yes, it's a strange name, you remember. It was supposed to be the Honky Tonk Man, but he couldn't make it, so they ended up having Tom McGee there. We had an illustrious career in WWE, didn't he? Anyway, so at that point they were, that's when I talked to Bruce, and Bruce was saying, well, what do you envision in becoming this business? And that's when I told him I'd like to be the announcer, and it just so happened that I had this show opportunity back in 6 months later to do it, and it was through that I became sort of really kind of knowledgeable about the wrestling business in the Northwest, and got into the magazine business. It was all about the injury that happened to Dynamite Kid in Hamilton, Ontario in '86. And it happened that I'd be out in Calgary that time when they were talking about this particular situation. And Dynamite was convalescing at one of the wrestlers' homes. And so we were able to, I was able to talk to this guy and get some information. And of course, being the fan I was at that time, I called the WWF offices. I figured, hey, I'll find out more about this. Well, of course, it hadn't been on TV. It doesn't exist, right? So, undeterred, I contacted Bill Apter at BWI, and believe it or not, that's how I got started on their shows. It was very amazing to do that. I'm gonna have to move the car a little bit because I was trying to back out of this driveway here. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty amazing just to have that opportunity to be able to write for a few publications, and so I did that. Wrestling World, I did that for 7.5 years. Wrestling and Main Event, I did for 3 or 4 issues. Goldberg Wrestling, I did a couple of issues, and BWI and that sort of thing. I sent them a lot of the information that they needed to know about the shows, and I did that for probably about 6 or 8 months or so in '86.
Well, Stuart, I mean, again, right then and there, I mean, just talking about how you got into, a lot of people say, hey, I got into the professional wrestling industry by training with so-and-so, or I talked with so-and-so about being a referee, and it kind of morphs into things. That is a story, I mean, in itself there. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. When Justin and I had our pre-show meeting, Justin is kind of been able to kind of see the best of both worlds in the world of professional wrestling. He got a very good introduction into the world of professional wrestling here in the St. Louis area, but now he's kind of transplanted into the Pacific Northwest, and I can see the wheels turning a little bit when you talk about some of these different territories and things along the line. Justin, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you. I know you've got a couple of questions that you'd like to ask Stuart here tonight as a part of the Wrestle Talk podcast.
Yeah. So, sir, what was your first time as a fan that you knew you wanted to be in the business?
Oh boy, I'll tell you, at home, we had our opportunities to watch All-Star Wrestling out of Vancouver. It was still being run at that time by Sandor Kovacs and Gene Kiniski. They were just getting ready to sell it to Al Tonko. So I had the opportunity right at the very end to see guys like Igor Volkov and Eric Froelich that were wrestling there. And then when Tonko took over the shows, they sort of dissipated a lot of the Portland guys that used to be up there a lot. And so it was just a fluke that I happened to flip on TV one time and saw Stampede Wrestling. And that was really what hooked me. It was, probably about late 82, early 83. I really became knowledgeable about that show a lot more just because it was coming to you from an arena. The crowd was hot. It wasn't like studio wrestling. I like studio wrestling fine, but there was just something about the arena shows that just took my mind, just exploded it.
And with you being a old school Stampede fan, what was who was your inspiration back then?
Well, there's a lot of the guys that I watched. Guys like Robbie Stewart was a phenomenal talent. He wasn't a big guy, but boy, could he ever move. Obviously, we got to see the beginnings of Dynamite Kid because that's when Bruce Hart brought him over. Probably be about 78 or so, just a little bit before when I started watching. But Bruce actually was really instrumental in bringing a lot of those English guys over. Guys like Stewart, Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith. Was a little bit involved with John Foley. And of course, there were some others that they had from time to time that had come in there as well and made a real impression, on their roster. They were smaller guys. They weren't the big guys that you'd seen Stampede Wrestling noted for. Archie Gouldy and Bad News Allen were a couple that come to mind. 260, 280 pounders. The guys like Robbie Stewart, Dynamite, and so on and so forth were maybe 210 or less. And so they weren't really big, favorites of Stu's, but Bruce sort of turned them over onto them because it was just phenomenal stuff that he got to see.
Okay, and with your intro to wrestling, how was your upcomings in training? What was your training like? Was it with the Hart Done the Stampede promotion?
I had learned a little bit of the inside workings when I was working with Smith Hart at Stu's house. Stu sort of gave me a little bit of inside knowledge on his stuff. Fortunately, I didn't go into the dungeon until much later, and then I wasn't being stretched, thank God. But I worked a lot with Michelle Starr in terms of some of the inner workings of the in-ring material. But I'd also had a background in watching a lot of stuff and sort of picking up a lot of things that I needed to do. And they were needing a guy that could basically be the enhancement talent. And so that's pretty much what I could do for them. And so I sort of flourished from there.
Okay, and one of my final questions, Luke, for the moment, I like to, we like to promote other promotions, throughout the United States, and we like to promote information for new guys that are coming up. But do you have any, bits of information? Any, oh God, I'm losing my mind here. Any advice for up and comers that are watching this show that want to get into the business?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest thing for a lot of these guys is don't rush it. You've got time. People seem to think that I need to get all my stuff in, right then and there. Relax, understanding that you don't have to have the 15-minute arm bar or whatever else, but you do need to make it a contest. If you're going to have a match with somebody, like I was at a training center one time And I saw a couple of guys, and they were giving me a little bit of showing what they could do, kind of thing. And I saw them with their heads down as they were trying to lock up. I said, "That's not what you do. You look at each other." Things like that. I think the biggest thing for a lot of these guys is that they want to do everything right then and there. And that's one thing that they need to remember is they don't need to do everything right then and there. People are going to come back. If they're impressed with what you've got to give them, they're going to come back. And you don't need to rush everything. You don't need to have, quickly run into this move and then into this move and then do this move and then do this move. What happens then is that people can't register with what you're offering them. The best way to describe it is what you're selling them. If you're going to sell them an experience, you've got to sell them an experience. You've got to give them the whole enchilada, in terms of food. You got to give them the bits and pieces. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm going to give them everything right then and there." You need to be able to get bits and pieces. And a lot of these guys want to try and rush everything. And I see these guys right now. I mean, I'm a fan. I loved it. ECW was a great promotion. But what I really hated was that a guy would be doing 16 million moves on a guy, which would literally kill somebody else, and then inside cradle to finish the move. To match off. That to me is irresponsible. When these guys need to learn about training and the proper techniques and that sort of thing, they need to relax. They need to be able to get those moves in so that people can respond to them, register them, understand that they're important moves. And to me, one of the biggest things, in conclusion, would be the finish. A finish is a finish, period. That means if you're using a figure 4 leg lock, that's when it ends. If you're using a sleeper hold, that's when it ends. I don't need to see 6 million breakouts of that move. It just waters it down, makes it meaningless and worthless. And then what do you do from there?
And I got to tell you right now, Stuart, you and myself and Justin, I think at some point the three of us have had some kind of a conversation about the world of professional wrestling. Because we all three think the same way. I think back to a time, and again, I'm not a spring chicken, but I still remember the time.
Come on now, we're all spring chickens.
But the idea of seeing wrestlers like in the Kansas City territory and wrestling at the Checker Dome and at the arena and things along the line, when you would see wrestlers going in there, wrestlers like your Briscoes, your Funks, your Races, your Flairs, who would go out there and would be able for 2 to 3, 4 minutes, and they could be focusing on a body part. They could be focusing on an arm or focusing on a leg. And you understood what was going on in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
It was one of those where, one of the things I always stressed when I was actively in the ring was the phrase, less is more.
Yes.
You don't have to go out every single match and do 9,000 moves. You have to, it's kind of like having a good meal. You have to, after a while, you got to let some of it digest before you can go to the next course. And that's one of those things that it is very refreshing to hear people. And that's one of the things that's great about the Wrestle Talk podcast. The opportunity to talk about, you get wrestlers who've come on the program who wrestle a contemporary wrestling style. And then you have wrestlers like yourself and myself and several others who have been a part of the, I don't want to say the old school because it's overused nowadays.
Yeah, I think so. Old school is overused. But I'll tell you, a great match to watch. If you're a new guy ever coming into this business, a good match to watch. And remember, now there is no audience in there at all. It's watching the empty arena match with Jerry Lawler and Terry Funk, a match that was done in 1981. Okay, now what did they do? They didn't do anything crazy. They didn't do anything insane, but each of the moves that they did meant something, so that when you got to the important, critical part, it meant something at the very end. And there was no audience. There was no reaction. There was no crowd reaction, nothing. You just have Lance Russell doing commentary, and that's it, right? But he's selling it as the narrator to be able to give you what's going on in the story. But the thing is that if you're a fan watching it at home, you get to see these two behemoths putting on a clinic, of what wrestling is supposed to be. You have good versus evil. You have, this and that, but you have nothing that's insane and nothing taking, rush and everything like that. You've got time to understand the way the direction is going. And so when those people watch those kinds of matches, and I use that one as an example, just because there isn't any crowd reaction here. If you want to get more hardcore, then you can watch the Boiler Room match with Undertaker and Mick Foley. Same kind of thing. No crowd in there. It's just two guys that are just basically, or the I think what is it now? The one with was it Piper and Dustin that did that match in the back of the hay truck or something like that?
I think it was
Dustin
Barry
Rhodes
Darsow.
and the Blacktop Bully.
Yeah, but it's the same kind of idea. Is that there's no crowd there? They just have to work on their motives to be able to get those people to react at home, and they're hoping that what they do is reactionary by people. And so when they see that, that's exactly what happens. You see that, and I think a lot of that is missed. For a lot of these guys, they try too hard to do all these things. Oh, I saw this in a video game, or I saw this on a wrestling show, or I saw this on whatever. It's like, guys, relax. Just take a look at what made it successful. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already been invented. You just need to make a couple spokes in there that are your own. That's it. Nothing more.
And Stuart, I want to go ahead and bring up two messages here. One was just brought up, and Hardcore Host, you could bring that back up here for just a moment. I wanted to make sure that Stuart got to see it. Thank you. I've been training for just under 2 months. I'm definitely going to check that match out. Again, that's one of the things that we were mentioning here earlier on, bringing advice to the next generation of professional wrestling. And, of course, I would be remiss, even though he's not here tonight, he's taking care of family issues, but I wanted to share a message here from our colleague, Renee the Night Owl Martinez, a man that you got to meet personally at the CAC reunion just a couple weeks ago. It was a pleasure to meet you at the CAC. And like I said, I want to make sure that he got his shout out to you tonight, this evening as well. Now, I want to change gears here a minute. You
Sure.
I'm in the ring, both as a referee and behind a microphone. I've got to ask you, and I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, being in front of the crowd and being a wrestler is the biggest rush. Would you say that being a commentator was the most important, or being a referee, or being the competitor? What do you think was the most important?
I think whichever you could narrate the best story at, referee, it depends. It's a big problem with them because a lot of them want to be the star of the event, and they don't need to be. They're supposed to be in the background. There are certain guys that you expect them to be out there, but take a look at a guy like James Beard, for example. Isn't flashy, but you know that he means business when he steps in that ring. And so those people understand that. Doesn't need to do anything crazy. Steps behind a lot of times in the background to be able to see what's going on. As a commentator, your job is there to promote the wrestling, there to promote the stars, make them stars, make them larger than life, create the ambiance that's there so that everybody goes and reacts to what it is that's happening. As a wrestler, you need to be able to dictate whether it's the front row or the back row. You need to be able to have that same kind of reaction from both sides of the audience. I know that I've had an opportunity to work a couple of shows that, one guy was, we were both heels pretty much at the show. And I said, let me go out first. I said, I will make you the face. And, I did just that, and it's that kind of reaction that you can get when we get to the back. He's like, what did we just do? I said, well, what we did was wrestling is what we did. We explained it. We didn't do very much. We just, he came out with the frog splash at the end, finished 1, 2, 3. There it is. We're done. And the reaction from the crowd was such that he got the pop when he was leaving, and people want to throw cups at me when I'm leaving. Well, that's fine. It's whatever they do. But the thing is that in that vein, those are the critical parts. Whether you're the announcer, as the announcer, you want there to be there to make the stars. Those guys are in the ring. They're on a stage. They're on a ring in a stage, right? It's up in the air. There's a reason for that. You want to look up to those wrestlers. So you want to have the announcer announce these guys as if they are a reason to be there. I don't care if you're the opening match or the last match. It doesn't matter. You are important. You've made it to this level. You can be important on that show, whatever it happens to be. And the announcer needs to create that ambiance for you. A commentator needs to be able to commentate in such a way that he knows the types of moves, is asking the questions beforehand to find out what it is that you do, who you are, proper phonetics, spelling, whatever else is, so that way there's no confusion. All of a sudden it's like, well, what a maneuver by the announcer or the commentator is not a good thing. You've got to be able to say what it is. It's just, well, what a maneuver. Well, you can say that 6,000 times. It doesn't mean anything. You need to be able to say, hey, that right there was a jaw jacker. That right there was a sidewalk slam. Right there was a super kick, and blah blah blah. Just things like that. These people just don't want to do that. They want to take the due diligence to know that, and that's a bit of a problem.
Well, Stuart, I want to go ahead and change gears yet again. I mean, you've been all around the world of professional wrestling. I would be remiss if I didn't take some time, and I do want to ask you a couple questions about the Cauliflower Alley Club. Now, the first one, I want to ask you, how long have you been affiliated with the Cauliflower Alley Club? And while you're answering that question, I've got a little bit of show and tell here. I know I've talked about it here in my office, but I want to go ahead for just a minute here, and I want to go ahead and kind of, for those, I mean, we've had Herb Simmons, we've had Brian Blair, we've had Dance Nevada, we've had Tom Simon. We've had a ton of different representatives from the CAC on the program. Can you give us a little bit about your experiences with the Cauliflower Alley Club?
Well, for the longest time, I've been told for many years, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. I never did. And this year really was, you've seen a variety of different podcasts from guys talking like Jeff Jarrett and Conan, who have spoken about their experiences, just unbelievable experiences that they had there. I started myself going in 2014, although I've been told many years before that, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. And I just never did. And, finally I decided, okay, I bit the biscuit and I went. And the only reason why I didn't want to go was because I thought it was only for the elite. I always thought it was always the guys in the WWE or WCW or whatever else. I never thought, podunk like me would ever get a chance to be, able to go there. And, when I went there, it was like, wow, I was I think the word is thrilled. Everybody was open arms. It was like, it didn't matter whether or not you were the bottom feeder guy or the top guy, on the shows, you were treated just the same. And that's really what made a big difference. And then, with the cribbage thing, what happened with that was that I was involved originally with Ricky Ataki. He'd been playing a few years on the cribbage tournament, and I've been conversing with him. I met him at the CAC in 2014, and I talked to him a few times before that, and he had said, you should come and play cribbage with us. And I thought, okay, well, I used to play with my grandpa, and we can do that. Of course, I would bounce out in the first round, but whatever. But it was fun. It was like a great opportunity to be able to just sort of converse with people, conversations, meeting with people, different walks of life and whatever else. And Bill White, who had been the cribbage person for, I'm thinking probably about 6 or 7 years before that, and with Al Friend as well, who passed away a few years ago. And Bill White, unfortunately, passed away as well. And Bill White, one year in 2017, said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to CAC anymore. Can you take over the cribbage for me? And there was big shoes to fill. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. You've got guys like the Super Detroiter that have been, part of the cribbage tournament. You've got, the Vachons that have been in the cribbage tournament, etc. Big names. And so it was a big shoes to fill for me. And I hope that I've done it justice in that regard. But I know that, again, Bill White was saying, just bring everybody in, have a good time. And that's what we've tried to do. When you play cribbage with us, it doesn't matter if you know the game or don't know the game. There's a lot of people that don't. It's what the wrestlers used to play back in the day in the locker rooms. It's unlike poker or something like that, which you'd have to remember hands and that sort of thing. You could play a couple of rounds and just have your pegs basically tell the story. So you could go out, do your match, come back and resume the game again and finish it off. And and that's what they would do for many a time.
Well, Stuart, I want to go ahead real quick. You were mentioning someone.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure I brought this up here. This is one of the reasons why, for those that aren't familiar, the Destroyer was very much affiliated with the cribbage tournament. And I got to tell you right now, I had to make sure that was one of the things that I've told Justin countless times as well. I've told the Night Owl. I've told the Maestro. When you talk about the cribbage tournament in the CAC, the Destroyer, hands down, that was one of the faces. And nowadays, it's Cowboy Bob Orton.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like been the name. And again, I'm going to tell you right now, and I put it out here a couple weeks ago, and you can probably see it somewhere over my head here. I have it here in my office, and you made good point. You made a real good point earlier on. I always felt, and I don't think I've ever told Justin this. I've told a handful of people I've known. Like you said, there's times when you just don't feel that you're not at the same level. You're not at the same characteristic. And to be able to win, even though I was the runner-up, to be able to go out there and play with guys like Brian Walcott, a well-known historian of the sport of professional wrestling.
How do they know all this stuff? I just don't get it, you know?
Exactly. And playing against guys like Cowboy Bob Orton, playing with people like Mike Chisholm and Steve, the gentleman who won it this past year. And I got to tell you right now, that very first game I played, I felt like I magically was kind of taken back 25 years ago, sitting in the locker room, playing cribbage, just like everybody else. And I mean, again, it was a great experience. And you get that opportunity. You meet so many people through the CAC. And something like you said, you learned it from playing with your grandfather. I learned it from sitting down playing with my dad. And sitting there and being able to carry on that tradition. I got to tell you right now, it really was a great experience. And I got to tell you, Stuart, having the opportunity to meet you, and I got to tell you right now, you and I have had so many stories off camera, off air, that we could have the Stuart Kemp show here on the Wrestle Talk podcast and be able to talk more about the world of professional wrestling. I know we're running pretty short on time here, but I do want to ask one more favor from you.
Absolutely.
You're a very busy man. You're involved with the cribbage tournament. You're involved with hockey. As well. You're a man of many talents. I do want to ask you one thing. Sometime down the road, and I'm hoping it would be before the end of 22, I want to have you back on the program. And to sit here, and I'll be honest, there's a couple other people who I've had a chance to talk to, but talk about professional wrestling in the Northwest, talk about professional wrestling in Canada, because a lot of us here in the States have an understanding of professional wrestling being one thing. When you talk about wrestling, like you talk about Stampede, you talk about Winnipeg, you talk about Toronto, you talk about Montreal, you talk about we were talking before about the Tony Canella Death Tours. Where you travel 24 hours in a van and you just go and all you see is ice and snow. And
one of the worst things in that tour. So you're traveling about 20 to 24 hours on a school bus over ice highways. You see the ice road truckers, I'm sure, on TV. It's pretty much like that. These guys are traveling to Indian towns, that can only be accessed either by boat or as I said, by plane or by vehicle during the wintertime, with the bus. And what's terrible about it sometimes, because they're doing the native Indian territories, if a person passes away in that tribe that's higher up, the whole town shuts down. There isn't a show. So these guys are camped out in the gym because there are no hotels. They bring a sleeping bag. They're hoping to God they're not going to freeze to death because it's minus 50 outside. And that's what they do for a couple of 3 weeks. Guys like Edge, guys like Rick Martel have been on those tours, and they can tell you about some of those tours. That they were brutal. Of course, on the other side, we didn't mention the other thing was the Maritimes. If guys were working in Vancouver or Calgary, they would usually shut down in the summer. And the summertime was when the Maritimes would run. Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, those sorts of places would be running. And so those guys would be transporting themselves from there in Vancouver and Calgary to the Maritimes on the other side of the country to work for probably about 6 months or so, and then they'd be back again.
Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, having the opportunity to talk with great wrestling personalities like yourself and Advanced Nevada, and we've got our good friends over at the FML promotion over in the greater Quebec area as well. I really want to have the opportunity to talk Canadian wrestling and talk about all the different things and the experiences that you've had. Stuart, like I said, we're running kind of short on time here, but I want to say on behalf of the Wrestle Talk podcast, I want to say thank you for joining us here this evening. I know that our viewership has really had a great time having you on the program. And again, I very much value the friendship that I've gained with you over the past several months as part of the CAC. And
We're just going to play cribbage next year.
That is true. Like I said, I got to figure out I got to figure out a way to make the return. And like I said, I got a second place plaque up here. I got to find a way to put that first place plaque up there. Maybe it'll be a rematch next year.
Well, I've lost every year myself, so I figured that I'm due for something at some point.
That is true, Stuart. That is true. Well, like I said, with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. You take care, Stuart, and we look forward to seeing you right here. And I almost forgot, you are now 100% guaranteed grade A, officially a member of the Wrestle Talk podcast family.
Big heart there. Big heart.
All right. Well, like I said, with that, Stuart, thank you for joining us on the program, and we look forward to having you back on real soon.
I look forward to being back again soon. And thank you very much to our guys at Wrestle Talk, because I appreciate you guys very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Stuart Kemp, Bulldog Brown Jr., right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Justin, I got to tell you, first hour's in the books. What did you think of that interview?
This is a very insightful interview. I think we're going to get a lot more from Mr. Kemp. Like you said, he's probably got stories, to fill 2 hours with his talks of his past dealing with wrestling in Canada.
And like I said, we've got a lot of great other resources as well. Wrestle Talk Podcast, always bringing you the best in professional wrestling, local, national, international level. Hardcore Hoss, I'm going to go ahead real quick here. I know that you were taking care of things behind the scenes. I know you were listening to the interview with Bulldog Bob Brown Jr., also known as Stuart Kemp. What were your thoughts about this interview? That we have to say, again, a very special shout out to the Cauliflower Alley Club for helping make that interview happen.
Oh, it was great, informative interview. I really enjoyed listening to the things he had to say, and I could really see the fans of the Wrestle Talk interacting with it and everything, and just a wonderful interview, great interview, and look forward to seeing him back sometime and hearing some more stories.
Well, you know something, guys? I mean, again, and Justin, you now know we're an hour into the program. I'm going to go ahead right now, and I know firsthand that you need to make it a point to take care of getting some more refreshment. You've been working hard doing all this research all day. We're going to go ahead here and take just a minute, and I'm going to go ahead. Hardcore Hoss, I think our good friend that we usually see about every time this week, usually we kind of flip-flop things, but if I'm not mistaken, we've still got the Snippets of Truth and the FWWC. I got to ask you, are either of those two men, which are very much familiar with the program, are either of them standing by?
We do have a representative from the FWWC standing by. Unfortunately, Perry is not backstage yet, and I have sent him a couple messages. Haven't heard back yet. I'm not sure what's going on there, but hopefully he'll pop in. But we definitely have someone from the FWWC.
Well, you know something right now, and I'm going to throw it out here. It's not a breaking news sounder, but it's there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching AEW and you're listening to the Wrestle Talk podcast or vice versa, ladies and gentlemen, it's Dalton Castle on AEW wrestling for the ROH World Heavyweight Championship. He is 1/3 of the 6-man tag team champions of Ring of Honor. Just wanted to throw that out there. I'm a huge Dalton Castle fan. But at this point in time, let's go ahead, because I know it's your opportunity here, Hardcore Hoss. Let's go ahead. We got a representative talking about the FWWC, which I believe you can catch every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m.
FWWC tonight is every Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, with myself, and CEO is the spokesperson for the show normally, and we just have a real good time there and talk fantasy wrestling, which I know some people may think is just absolutely crazy, but You know, you have fantasy football, you have fantasy baseball, soccer. Why not fantasy wrestling? And, for people who, such as myself, I have back problems, leg problems, knee problems, all kinds of stuff. And, I couldn't get in a ring if I wanted to, which, I'd love to, but I can't. So, what better way? We cut promos, we do role play, we have matches. We pick from WWE, occasionally AEW, and the one who scores the most comes out as the winner. And like I say, we promo against each other, trash talk, and have a real good time with it. And so
Hardcore Hoss,
why not?
I had an opportunity to see one of those FWWC promos. Not necessarily one of the most popular guys in the FWWC, but I got an opportunity to see that promo from El Mata. And I don't know how he managed to make it to Vegas, but he did. I was sitting there and I was eating my lunch. I was enjoying the CAC, and I saw El Mata walking across the facility, and I'm like, only as a part of the CAC would you see El Mata walking through as a part of that great event. But you know something? Let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and turn things over to our representative for the FWWC. I'm interested to see who's going to be here. So let's go ahead and bring him up. Our special guest correspondent for the FWWC.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, she is a former hardcore champion. She is the first general manager to go all the way. She's got plenty of accolades to talk about, in both real life and the FWWC. She is my one and only sister, the one, the only Sister Haas.
Hey. How is it going? Look, good to see you, man.
Hey, thank you, Susie. I mean, again, right now, I got to tell you this. I got a lot of cool stuff back here, but if you turn around and look over your shoulder, you've got a ton of hardware back there. And as Hardcore was talking about before, you've been a GM. You've been basically at the top of the food chain in the FWWC. And I know tonight that you've got some things on your mind. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you so we can kind of get a little more insight in the world that is the FWWC.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight representing the FWWC. And, I am kind of the co-host or a backup host, if you will, for the CEO of the FWWC. It's always my pleasure to fill in when Dewan can't be here. And tonight is no exception. CEO couldn't be here tonight. He had some personal business to take care of. So I decided to come on and take his place and introduce the card that we're going to have for Friday night. Now, we're going to have two really big matches Friday night. And as you can see by the screen, we've got Ace versus Karma. Now, I have been in the ring with both of these folks, and they are phenomenal wrestlers. So I'm really looking forward to that match. And then we have what they're going to call a last chance match with Holy Hell, which is our Oni and Fallen, and then the Hefty Boys. And the Hefty Boys, my brother Haas, and my adopted little brother, James the Brick Wall Buttkiss. And this is a last chance match to see which of these teams will face the tag team champions, Prophets of Madness, at Survivor Series. So this ought to be a really good match come Friday night, and I'm looking forward to all of these matches Friday night. And if Haas was saying earlier, everybody talks about fantasy wrestling. Well, let me tell you something. I have been one of the most active females in the FWWC for a very long time. Now, we do have a few other females, but if you are a female out there and you've always wanted to wrestle, but you just can't get in the ring for whatever reason, the FWWC is just what you're looking for. And you can come on and you can join us, and we have a great time there. It's a big family. We have a great time, and we have matches, we have pay-per-views, and if you win a title, we actually send it to you, and you get to walk around for at least a month with that title on your shoulder. And let me tell you, I go to independent shows around here all the time, and whenever I've had a title, I walk in and everybody wants to know, what's that? Where'd you get that? When I had the Spartans title, the Spartans Heart Championship, let me tell you, everybody wanted to know what it was. So come join us. If you are a big wrestling fan, check out the FWWC. And Thursday nights, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, check out the FWWC tonight. We will
All
always
right.
be-
You know something, Sister Haas, when you sit there and you talk about the FWWC, you are an aficionado of it. When you talk about Hardcore Haas, you talk about Nightmare Jones and all of his exploits. You talk about the Night Owl. I got to tell you, a lot of the great conversations we've had about the FWWC have come from you, and it's from your experience and your knowledge of the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. And I got to tell you, it's always you're watching every week. You're always contributing to the FWWC. And I got to tell you, it is an honor and a privilege not only to have you on the program, but to consider you a part of the Wrestle Talk podcast family and a part of my family as well. Thank you for coming on the program, and we look forward to seeing you Thursday night as we talk about the FWWC, available on all forms of social media, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, 6:30 Mountain, 5:30 Pacific, and all over everywhere through social media. Sister Haas, thank you for coming on the program.
You know, before I go, let me tell you one thing. You were talking about Mata there just a minute. You know, I have an opportunity at our Survivor Series. I myself, along with Savior Saint, are going to face Almada for his title, the Warriors Heart Championship. Mm-hmm. So me and Savior Saint and Mata are going to do a 3-way match at Survivor Series, and I cannot wait. You know, I've had nothing but a lot of respect for Almada, but hey, business is business, and I intend to walk out of Survivor Series the Warriors Heart Champion.
And you heard it right here, Sister Haas talking about the match at Survivor Series, the FWWC Survivor Series, at 3-way dance. Sister Haas, Savior Saint, and of course Almada for the Warriors Heart Championship. You know, when that happens, we're going to have you here on the program. And I'm going to tell you right now, we talk about Mata. He's already blowing up my phone. We're going to have to kind of deal with that at a later time. But again, Sister Haas talking FWWC right here tonight. I hope you're going to stay with us for our second interview momentarily with H.D. Daniels in just a few moments. Thank you, Sister Haas, and we'll see you again soon. Right now, I think at this point in time, I know the Hardcore Haas is floating around here somewhere. Haas, I got to tell you, she laid it down tonight, man. She's pulling no punches.
Always does, I tell you.
Well, you know something? We're getting real close to our second interview. We're going to have referee H.D. Daniels on here in just a few moments. I think we're going to be joined here momentarily by our broadcast colleague, Justin Wade. And Justin's joining us here.
Hey.
Hey, you're here. I'm impressed. You managed to find your way back to the program this evening. Well, I got to tell you right now, Justin, we're going to have a great interview here in the second hour. And Hardcore Haas is our second guest in the green room yet?
Yes, he is.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to send things over to him here in just a minute. I got to tell you here, our second guest this evening is a part of the Wrestle Talk podcast, is a man who I've really, over the course of the past couple of years, have grown to respect not only as an in-ring official, not only as a very knowledgeable person inside the squared circle, but a man I respect infinitely as a human being. Had an opportunity when this man was struggling, trying to find his way in the world of professional wrestling, spending many hours inside the squared circle, learning his craft, learning what it takes to be an expert official, an expert man when it comes to the world of being a professional wrestling official. H.D. Daniels got bummed out. He got frustrated. And he took the time to learn, not just from those that were in the ring, but he took the opportunity, much like our previous guest, Stuart Kemp, talked about, to learn under the learning tree of those that came before him in the world of professional wrestling. And since he's made his debut, he's competed and he's been an official for such promotions as Dynamo Pro Wrestling, as WLW, as Glory Pro Wrestling, as BACW. He has been all over the place in the world of professional wrestling. And I got to tell you, it's indeed an honor and a privilege to have him here on the program. So Hardcore Haas, if you would be so kind, let's go ahead and hit that intro music for the one, the only H.D. Daniels. Go ahead and hit that intro music. All right, ladies and gentlemen, HD, welcome to the program here tonight on a Tuesday night here on Wrestle Talk. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing awesome. I can't speak for my broadcast colleagues. I mean, again, he is like 2 hours behind us. But Justin, how are you? Are you still doing good out there in the Seattle land?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we got the great Sasquatch out here in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm going to keep my eyes open.
Yeah, well, I got to ask you first here. I kind of feel out of sorts here because I'm the only one without the bald head.
Well, if you didn't look like Humpty Dumpty, you'd be okay with the bald head.
Well, you know something, too, and I was just sitting there thinking about it. When you talk about officials here in the St. Louis area, I got to ask you, and this is going to be one of those I'm going to have to find out, especially this Friday, as a part of the Ben Oliver Memorial Tournament with Dynamo Pro Wrestling. I got to find out who was the one that's been bald longer, you or referee Christopher Miles?
Are you talking to me or
Well, I'm talking about HD Daniels here because, I mean, as long as I've known him and as long as I've known Christopher Miles, both referees, both very accomplished referees, and I've never known them to have hair on the top of their head.
So, first of all, Luke, thanks for having me and inviting me. If you guys saw me before you brought me on backstage, while I was technically in the backstage digital area, I could not get my lighting right, and I still don't know if it's right. And part of it is because I had this light bouncing off my head. I can't.
You're blocking it. Actually, you're doing it
right.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
If I move this way, it messes up the light. So I don't know. It's weird. But when you met me, Luke, I did have hair, but I was in that stage of I'm not really going to be bald. That's not going to be me. I'm not going to be that guy. And I saw some photos of myself from the back, and I was like, ooh, that looks really bad. I'm balding pretty dang good there. So I earlier this year is when I finally submitted and started shaving my head. But as far as your question, who's been bald longer, that'd be Christopher Miles.
Well, like I said, you both rock the hairstyle real well, and I'm going to tell you right now, I've had the opportunity, and I know Justin remembers, a couple of years ago, I had to shave my head from some surgery, and I got to tell you,
it was a horror show.
Yeah, it was not pretty. I'm going to tell you that right now.
But
I want to go ahead here and kind of take a little bit of a detour. I know we could talk about how you got into professional wrestling and all that, and we're going to have plenty of time to talk to you about that. But I want to throw something out here that a lot of people don't know, and I know that as soon as we start talking about it, the light bulb over Justin's head's going to go off in just a minute. Before you even got involved in professional wrestling, am I correct? One of the first conversations I ever had was you were very familiar with another well-known, very outspoken St. Louis professional wrestling personality before you even got into professional wrestling?
Are you talking about Tom?
I'm talking about the one, the only spoiled Stephen Kennedy. I gotta get a little bit of a backstory here because Justin's been in the ring with this man. Justin remembered a true story here, and I don't know if you've ever heard this story, HD. It was back right about the time Justin was getting ready to make his debut inside the ring. And there was a matchup between Jeremy Lightfoot and spoiled Stephen Kennedy for the Max Mid-America Extreme Illinois State Championship, a championship which my broadcast colleague has held for a number of months as well in his career. And I don't know what happened, but I came back later on. I had just taken a break. I was getting a bottle of water. I was an official that night. And I come back, and I have never, he's probably one of the top 5 people I've seen. He comes back through the curtain. You can't see his eyes blinking. You can't see, you couldn't see like this part of his chest because somehow during the course of the match, he was bleeding all over the place. And I know, Justin, you remember seeing the picture from our good friend, Patrick Brandmeier.
Yeah.
It looked like he had literally had his face just ground on.
Looks like he put his face in a bowl of marinara.
Yeah, it was not pretty, but I digress here. Can you share a little bit of that background history between you and Stephen Kennedy?
Well, Luke, I hate to put you out like this, but I don't have that relationship. I'm unfamiliar with that name.
I get you. We'll keep that for another time.
Okay. All right. I apologize.
Yeah, that's no problem. We can keep that for another time. And again, that's one of those being respectful. Right. I mean, but anyway, I digress. We now go into your opportunity to get into the world of professional wrestling. Can you share with the viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast what motivated you to become a member of the professional wrestling?
It's always something that was intriguing to me. You know, I've been watching wrestling, I don't know, 25 years, something like that. And, you know, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, I'd love to be a wrestler. And then life kind of gets in the way sometimes. You go to college, whatnot. Me, myself, I have a wife, I have kids. And it got to a point where I was just like, I still have this itch to be part of the business, but I don't know what it would be. And I know St. Louis is big in the independent scene. So how do you do that? What do you do? And I always thought being the guy in the ring counting 1, 2, 3 would be so cool. And so I got in contact with Dynamo and started attending their dojo classes. And that's where I met you. And you were a big coach, big help to me along with the other coaches. And that's the short version of, oh man, I thought the thrill of having the crowd count 1, 2, 3 with me would be so cool, and having the best seat in the house with some really cool wrestling matches.
Well, I got to tell you this, and Justin, you've been an in-ring competitor, so you can know where I'm going with this. I remember one of the first times you refereed in Dynamo Pro Wrestling. And as officials, we are impartial. We got to call it right down the middle. And I remember watching your face the first time you came through at Dynamo Pro Wrestling. It had been a couple months. And the fans were actually booing you and giving you grief because you were doing your job. I got to ask you, and I've asked a couple of our friends here at the Wrestle Talk podcast, what does it feel like to know that you're doing your job and the fans don't like the job you're doing?
Do we break the fourth wall here?
We can a little bit. I mean, again, it's one of those, you sit there and look at it. I mean, again, you're doing your job, but yet the fans don't appreciate it.
So what I don't like about that particular aspect is I'm doing my job. The crowd doesn't like it. What does that do? That gives me heat. Mm-hmm. I don't want the heat. I want the heat to go where it's supposed to go, which would be the heel of the match.
That is true.
And I've had many occasions where we get to the back and I'm talking with the boys. It's like, guys, I had more heat than you. I don't know how exactly that happened, but it was uncomfortable. It's always a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't know why the crowd is behaving certain ways sometimes. You can never control a wrestling crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you know one thing, and Justin, I'm going to go ahead and kind of throw things to you here in a minute. Would you say, HD, that this is one of those kinds of things where it's, and we talked with Stuart Kemp in the first hour, do you think it's something about how wrestling has changed over the course? And you talk about being a fan like Justin and I, we've been fans for many years as well as being in-ring competitors. Would you say it's just the dynamic of professional wrestling changing from the days of the 80s where the official was considered to be the most respected person inside the ring or just as respected as the wrestlers? And now it's almost like by doing what's right and respectful that now we're almost being considered to be, I'm trying to put the word to it, almost like we're looked down upon?
Well, I don't know if looked down upon. I almost think everybody thinks they could be a referee. Mm-hmm. So what do? You count 3, you count 10, you count 5. I just did a show over the weekend where there was a bunch of outside shenanigans, and there was a backstage beatdown during the match. All we heard in the back behind the curtain was a bunch of noise and things flying and banging on the ground. I slowed down my count for the shock value of that moment. While I did that, I had people in the crowd, why aren't you counting fast enough? Start counting, blah, 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 stuff like that. Like, guys, yes, technically that's true. Maybe I should have been counting, but do you hear what's happening here? Let's live in the moment now. not always about counting to 10. What's going on in the environment here? Let's pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to me, even though I was the only one in the ring at the time.
And I could agree with you 100% there in the idea of where there are times when, and again, it's a term that a lot of people don't understand. Like you said, you talk about how people want to think they can be a referee. It's called referee's discretion. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. You can look at it from there. I think back to a matchup, and you may have seen it, HD. It was back as part of Super Clash 3 in the AWA. It was when the unification of Jerry Lawler and Kerry Von Erich. And Kerry Von Erich early in the match had a cut on his head, and the official, he could have stopped the match right then and there because Kerry was bleeding buckets. But the referee continued to let it go, but he constantly kept watch on it. And that's one of the things when you sit there and look at it, let the referee do their job. And I would agree with you 100%. Now, Justin, you're going to look at this a little bit differently because you spent more of your time being inside the ring as the competitor, being either admonished or acknowledged by the referee, being a competitor. I want to throw things over to you because I want you to bring a different perspective to this interview besides my own perspective.
Well, when I worked on both sides, making the crowd cheer or making the crowd boo, in my head, you always worked with the referee. It's always about making it's like a piece. It's like a painting. You got to put all the pieces together. And if you're not working with the referee, then, things could go kaput. Like you said, you had the fans booing you when they should be booing the heel. Now, when you had that happen, HD, did you, pass along during the match? Did you signal that, hey, guys, they're booing me. They're not booing the right person?
So I usually don't acknowledge the fans during the match at all. They can heckle me all they want. I don't give them the attention. I don't respond because the match isn't about me. If I start talking to the fans, like, well, what is this ref doing? It's about the other competitors in the ring. I'm just there to facilitate their story. There was one incident a couple weeks ago. It was a triple threat match. One of the competitors had a valet with them, and the valet was doing all kinds of crazy shenanigans on the outside, interfering in the match, hitting with weapons, stuff like that. There was one fan would not let up on me. Ref, what are you doing? She's cheating, blah, blah, blah. I did not acknowledge him one time through the whole match. And afterwards, after the bell, I got down, I spoke with him. I said, listen, sir, triple threats are no disqualification. I heard you the whole time, but those are the rules. And we shook hands and we moved on. So.
Okay, yeah, because, if you acknowledge him, he's complaining that you're not seeing the valet, but if you acknowledge him, you're going to miss something else. So, you're playing the right role. And Luke, I've always had you've refed my matches in the past. And I think we can agree that we all have to work together to put on a show for the fans.
Well, I got to throw one out here too. And again, being an official, it's kind of a unique situation because I know you've heard the story before about how wrestlers over the course of their career have been known to travel with other wrestlers. And I remember the story, and I know I shared it last week when Justin was on the program. And you can see, HD, Justin's not a little guy.
Thanks.
Well, hey, I'm not either. You're never around about half this size. But when you sit there and look at it and being able to remember some of the things and some of the influences of road trips and people you've been on the road with and things like that, it really gives you a perspective of the professional wrestling world. Now, I got to ask you, as an official, who do you turn to get input, to get more insight on doing your job as an official? Are there anybody? I mean, again, there's a lot of great officials here in the St. Louis area. Guys like Jay King, like I know Shaft has refereed on a few occasions. You got guys like Christopher Miles. I've been in the ring a few times. Is there anybody that you really turn to as kind of a voice for advice when you're inside the ring and when you're doing your job?
Yeah, I would say number one would be Dr. J. King. He was the first referee I met in the business. I suppose I met you and Jay around the same time.
Mhm.
Jay is, I don't even know how long he's been a referee, but I remember I've had a couple brain farts like early on. You're like, Jay, why do I stop the count of 10 when the guy comes in and comes out? Like, I know the answer, but I couldn't think of it at that time. He calms me down. We do these things for these reasons. He has that experience of being so calm in the ring. And I'm trying to adapt to that style. I feel like I've been a little calmer these days and can deal with more situations as they come. Sadie Blaze, I talked to him. I just had a conversation with him at the last Dynamo show. You know, what can I do for you to be better? He gave me some pointers. Um, and then, there's a few wrestlers that I talked to. Adrian Surge is a big advocate of mine, always complimenting me and helping me get better as well.
Well, I got to tell you right now. Well, that's
you too.
well, thank you for that. But like I said, I got to ask you, and again, this is going to kind of veer off a little bit. Recently, since the beginning of the year, we've seen a different side of Adrian Surge inside the squared circle, and I've got to ask you, has it kind of, and again, I'm kind of bending things here a little bit. Has it been a little bit different when you're having those conversations, knowing that the fans have gone from really having that almost love for Adrian Surge, and now he's honestly one of the most despised men on the Dynamo Pro roster?
So I would say my relationship with Surge is still professional, but if he does something to get out of line, I don't feel nervous or I feel that is my place to tell him. I don't feel uncomfortable doing that. Whether it's before the match, during the match, or after the match. Like, Surge, what the heck are you doing? Come on, you know you're not supposed to do that. And I'll stand up for the rules of the law as needed in the wrestling ring.
Okay, that's very simple and straightforward to the point. Now, I've got to ask you this. You have been in countless promotions throughout the Midwest. Are there any matches or any wrestlers, you kind of made reference to this a little earlier ago, any matches or any wrestlers that have really stood out to you as, oh, I really hope that I can get the assignment of that person's match, or I really enjoy what they do inside the ring? Are there any wrestlers that really kind of pique your interest, I guess would be the best way to put that?
So, I'm just Adrian Surge, I'll mention his name again. I love doing his matches. They're always fun. I love a new up-and-coming wrestler in St. Louis, Tommy Davis. I love Tommy Davis matches. When I see a card that has, let's say, ATM, I love doing ATM matches, Mike Outlaw matches, Camaro Jackson matches. I've done this year, I've done 2 Delirious matches.
Mm-hmm.
Those matches are crazy, off the wall. I never know what he's going to do. Let's see, I've done a few Warhorse matches. Those are always fun. I try not to show up to a show, see my bookings, and be upset because I'm there because I know I'm going to enjoy myself. So I try not to look at a match and say, "Oh, that's a bummer." That's not really my thing. So I try to enjoy everything.
Well, I gotta tell you right now, I've had the opportunity to referee a few Delirious matches in my career, but I gotta tell you this: I would rather be the official for a Delirious match than a commentator for a Delirious match. I'm gonna tell you right now, true story. The last time that we had Delirious in a Dynamo Pro ring, and it wasn't the match with Beachbody Ryan Ash. It wasn't the match where Ash was forced to retire. But I had an opportunity to call commentary for that matchup. And I'm going to tell you right now, calling commentary for that matchup is almost like Delirious. It's just sheer chaos. You're hoping that you can keep up with the man. And I got to tell you, inside the ring, great competitor. Had an opportunity in a variety of different promotions to be around the ring with him. And again, he's crazy. He might be a little bit strange, but he gets the job done inside the ring. Now, I want to bring up here, and you know that the Wrestle Talk podcast has a lot of great viewers. And of course, I know he's going to be upset that we didn't bring up his question. We're going to bring it up here from our good buddy, Sonny Money Mayo. Here's your question. If you could have a referee Mount Rushmore, who would it be?
So is that 4 or 5?
Let's go with 4.
Okay. So I know there's a few old school NWA referees, Luke, that you appreciate. I'm gonna put out there that I'm not the oldest of old school fans, so I don't know all their names. I'm gonna start with my favorite, Charles Robinson.
Okay.
I love Charles Robinson. Referee John Cone is another one of my favorites in WWE. He's not on TV hardly at all anymore, if at all. But I love his style. Let's see. I like Chad Patton, Rudy Charles. Those are some good. I guess I'm naming modern day referees. So I'm not so well versed in the very old school style of refereeing, if that makes sense.
Well, I get where you're coming from on that. I mean, again, you've been a long-time fan, but you've been looking at wrestling from a different perspective. You've been a long-time fan who's just made the transition in the last year and a half, 2 years' time to being inside the ring. Now, Justin, you and I have had this conversation before.
Yeah.
And I know you've been looking at it for more of being an in-ring competitor. Let's throw it to you. If you could name a referee's Mount Rushmore, who would you choose?
All right. You got to go with old WCW referee Randy Anderson, little Randy Anderson. Unfortunately, I think he passed on a couple years ago. Then you got Earl Hebner. He's got to be number 1. Let's see. You got
Hebner.
Hebner's there. Then you got who was the referee Rob in the NWA? Who I remember most like reffing like Flair and Steamboat matches.
Tommy Young.
Tommy Young, yeah, Tommy Young. And then I'm going to say I liked Mickey J. He used to be a SmackDown referee, I believe. He was like when they brought ECW back to the WWE.
Right. He
was on ECW. Then they transferred him to SmackDown. But I always got that old school ref mentality from Mickey J. So those are my 4.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now, a couple of mine are going to definitely kind of confuse some people here. My first is probably going to be Nick Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
I think Nick Patrick was consistently one of the best referees that the NWA, WCW had to offer. He did spend some time in the WWE. My second would probably be Tommy Young. The third, I'm probably going to go with, this is going to be a name that's going to throw a lot of people, Jimmy Red Shoes Dugan.
Tell us about him, Rob. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who he is.
Long-time wrestling referee out on the West Coast. And the fourth, which is going to surprise a lot of people, is Tiger Hattori.
Okay.
I think all of it. And again, you still got to throw out the Hebners. I mean, I kind of look at it. You leave out referees like Joey Morella back in the 80s.
The 80s, 90s until 93, Morella.
Mark Curtis.
Oh, little Mark Curtis,
really good. I mean, there's a lot of good referees. Paul Turner's another one. A lot of people might give a lot of grief, but
what about Bill Alfonso when he was reffing early WCW, WWF before he went to ECW to manage Rob Van Dam and Taz?
Didn't he referee? I think it was Super Brawl 1. Didn't he referee Tatsumi?
The tag match was
and Ric Flair.
Yeah, he was the ref for that match too. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of great referees. Now, my question is this, and I'm gonna throw another one out here, and this is gonna be more like a roundtable discussion. And again, making a point if you're enjoying the program here, and again, thank you for throwing Earl Hebner out there as well. Another one to look at here again, hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling. That's what we're doing right here tonight with referee H.D. Daniels. Now, H.D., I'm gonna kind of get a little bit self-centered here. Being the media relations director with Dynamo Pro Wrestling, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this coming Friday, the Ben Oliver Memorial Tournament. Now, I know you didn't have a lot of dealings with Big Bad Ben, but what is it?
None.
But from what you've heard from the veterans of the locker room, from all the road stories that you've heard, what does it mean to you to be a part of this Friday night's event?
It's important to me to be a part of an event that's important to other people that find the event important, if that makes sense. So I remember when Sadie first announced this tournament, it may have been about a year ago. He said, we're going to have this tournament. And he was almost choked up making the announcement. I was like, wow, this must be really important to him. So by default, it's important to me. So I've heard nothing but good things about this man. And hopefully the show can live up to the legacy that he has left. And I want to learn about him. I want to ask as many questions as I can when I get to the event on Friday.
Well, I got to tell you right now, I mean, again, I've been around pro wrestling a long time, and the opportunity to have known Big Bad Ben, there were many years that Ben and I didn't get along. And I felt very fortunate in the fact that Dynamo Pro Wrestling gave me the opportunity to kind of, I almost say extend an olive branch and really kind of sit down and try to mend some fences that had a lot of people didn't think could be mended. And I mean, when you sit there and look at it for years in St. Louis, when you were looking independent wrestling, you were looking at basically the MMWA, and that was it. And to see what Big Bad Ben was able to do with MRW and then GCW, I mean, again, it made professional wrestling. It changed the way that professional wrestling at an independent level was looked at in St. Louis. And again, can we go ahead and bring up Aaron Wallace's comment? I think he really kind of hits the point on the head here. Hardcore Hoss, you can bring that back up. Rest in peace to Big Bad Ben. He was at my first show. I got to know him a little bit as older. Amazing big man and even a better person. It hit hard. Hit a lot of people. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen a lot of people who are talking about the importance of this event. I mean, again, if you look at the Dynamo Pro roster, people that have the influence, I mean, Jim and Crystal Young, Sadie Blaze, Outcast, Ryan Ash, Jackal, Rocket, the Don Mega Shorty Biggs, Delirious, Mischief, Matt Seidel, Daisy Hayes, Johnny Greenpeace. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Sean Vincent.
Harrington, Sean Vincent, Mike Sharona, Jack Adonis. I mean,
Trent
I could go on. Trent Stone. Thank you for bringing that one up too, Justin.
Yeah, he's ex-WLW champion.
That is true. But when you sit there and you look at it, I mean, all these people have their connection. Another one, Kevin X. Another one that pops into my head with that. But to see all the wrestlers that have a connection to the world of professional wrestling because of someone like Big Bad Ben, it's going to be a great event this Friday night. And again, if you get an opportunity, the Concordia Turner Gymnasium, make sure you get your ticket. I believe doors open for this event at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock bell time, special 7 o'clock bell. Make it a point to be there, get your tickets, and bring people out. It's going to be a really great event. Now, Justin, I want to go ahead and throw things over to you because I can just see that the wheels are turning in your head.
I just have one thing to say about Big Bad Ben. Like, I got my initial knowledge of Big Bad Ben back in the old days before I got into the world of wrestling, around the 98, 99 era, if you don't mind me bringing up an old show, Luke. Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
That's fine.
The Stranglehold by radio personality Brian Stahl. He used to have a show every Tuesday night, and that's why I'm kind of getting the feelings here, what we're doing here every Tuesday night. It's nowhere in the realm yet of what Mr. Stahl did, but it's work. It's getting viewership. And anyways, what I wanted to say is that I got my introduction to Big Bad Ben when they were promoting shows with him, Wrecking Ball, Pete Madden, and I really do think I only had, and when I was, doing shows, working, as a wrestler back in the day, a few times chances that I got to talk with Big Bad Ben, and we could never, put two and two together to where, we could work together. But he was always fair to me. He was always a nice man. He was good to his boys. He went around as Big Bad Ben, yeah. But those who were really close to him, I could tell that they cared and loved that man a lot. And I really wish in the independent wrestling scene in St. Louis, this memorial show could be a bigger thing, just not from one promotion. I wish it could be cross-branded because he was a big name in the St. Louis industry for a long time and still is. You guys are putting a memorial show on for him. I just wish other promotions could work together just for once to do this for him.
And that's a really great thought, Justin. And the idea of where, Ben impacted so many professional wrestling promotions it wasn't just GCW. There were a lot of promotions
Yeah.
that he had a connection to. And again, the opportunity, I mean, that may be something down the road. But I mean, again, it was very fortunate that he was recognized Midwest Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame. And again, a man who definitely changed the St. Louis professional wrestling scene. Now, gentlemen, talking about the professional wrestling world, we're getting about to that point of time in the show each and every week, what's called the world famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. It's an opportunity to where one of our hosts, that being certain guys named Justin Wade, and certain bald-headed officials named H.D. Daniels, would be able to have an opportunity to compete in a best 2 out of 3 fall contest about a particular professional wrestling topic. Now, HD, I'm going to warn you. Justin last week managed to make it work, but I think you've got the right formula tonight. I just have this feeling that Justin's winning streak could be over tonight.
It's only been a week. I don't have a streak. It's
You're 1-0. You're undefeated.
Oh, okay.
So,
I got the taker streak going on. Okay.
I always think about the movie Major League. If you can win this week, it's 2 in a row. So let's kind of roll with it here. Hardcore
Good job
Hoss,
with your math.
can you go ahead and hit the music for tonight's installment of the world famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge? Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's installment of the world famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the first 2 out of 3 falls. Our contestants tonight are the current host of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, Justin Wade, and referee H.D. Daniels. Now, gentlemen, in a few moments, I'm going to give you information about 3 professional wrestling personalities. When you think you know the answer, you shout out the answer. The first one to get 2 out of 3 falls correct will be tonight's winner. Now, tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge category is something that may be a little bit different for both of you. Tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge category, wrestling referees.
You're gonna have to reset that, Rob.
No.
You froze.
I can't have referees because that would be, I know that it would be unfair. So how about I change it up tonight? Professional wrestling managers. I'm going to give you information on 3 managers that made their name and made their reputation in the world of professional wrestling. When you think you know who this individual is, shout out your answer. First 2 out of 3 wins tonight's contest. Again, tonight's category, to be fair to everybody involved, is professional wrestling managers. Justin, are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
HD, are you ready?
Go.
All right. Question number 1. This individual spent time in many promotions, including World Class Championship Wrestling, the NWA, and WCW. Wrestlers that he managed included Chris Adams, the Great Kabuki,
Teddy Hart,
and the Great Muda. Name him.
Teddy Hart.
No.
Oh.
Jimmy Hart?
No. You can keep guessing answers, gentlemen. As a little extra added bonus, he was also known for his bald head.
Yeah, it's Gary Hart.
Gary Hart is the correct answer.
Okay.
God
1-0 for Justin. Gentlemen, are you ready for question number 2?
Sure.
Who's Teddy Hart? Is there Teddy Hart?
Yeah, Teddy Hart was a member of the Hart family, one of the last graduates of the Hart Dungeon.
All right. Let's go.
Here we go. Question number 2. This individual is a WWE Hall of Famer.
Queen Charmel.
No. But he is a Hall of Famer as a wrestler. He was also a manager of WWF Tag Team Champions, the Godwins. Name him.
Oh, Hillbilly Jim.
That is correct. Justin's up 2-0. Now, HD, I'm going to tell you right now, Justin already has the victory. But
Sure.
if he sweeps you tonight, that's not going to be good for you.
No, that's okay though.
Okay, we're going to see what's here. Gentlemen,
He said
well, go ahead, Justin.
it's been kind of unfair to HD because he hasn't been following as long as I have. I think I'm older than him. I'm 38. So,
All right. Well, at this point, we're going to go ahead and throw a third one out here. And we're going to see if HD can at least wind up winning the final fall. This
We'll see.
individual was known for countless classic wrestling moments. He was known as a manager in WCW, ECW, and the WWE.
Paul Heyman?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Well, there you go.
clean sweep takes place tonight, and Justin Wade goes 3-0 against
HD, I don't have nothing besides the show, so I needed this.
So at this
Okay.
point, Hardcore Hoss, be so kind for the second week in a row. Can you hit the music for tonight's winner of the game show challenge, Justin Wade?
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, I got to throw this one up here because we have a viewer that posted something here. Hardcore Hoss, can you bring this up here real quick? First time in a long time I've seen an emoji make a ton of sense. Can you bring up that graphic right here? It's got a broom. Sweep. Ladies and gentlemen, had to bring it up here.
What a beautiful woman in that photo.
Podcast bringing it up there again. HD, for those that would like to see you inside the squared circle, I know you're a referee. You don't want to have the attention drawn to you. But those that want to know what's going on in the world of HD Daniels, where can they find out more about you and what upcoming events are you going to be taking part in?
So my Twitter handle is right on the screen here at Hans Dick Daniels. We already talked about this coming Friday, the Ben Memorial Tournament. November 4th, the next weekend after that, I will be at Pro Wrestling Epic in Alton, Illinois. And November 5th, the next day, is a very big show, World League Wrestling's 23rd anniversary. The house that Harley Race built, Trevor Murdoch, the NWA World's Champion, will be in action. I'm really looking forward to that one. And I'm at Dynamo once a month. Definitely for sure that one. The World League Wrestling once a month as well.
HD, keep getting those reps in, man. It's nice to meet you, man.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, HD Daniels here on the Wrestle Talk podcast this evening. And as he's going ahead and taking care of things, right now, I know we were going to keep you up to date on everything NXT and AEW. And as many people predicted, right now as we stand, we have Jon Moxley in the ring, and who has just made his appearance, but the one, the only Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. He's at ringside right now. Could it be a situation where we see him cash in his chip and go for the AEW World Championship tonight? Only time's going to tell here. Now, before we get too much farther along here tonight, we've had a great show, but we need to take an opportunity here and kind of reflect a little bit. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead, and I want to go ahead and bring on a man who's very knowledgeable of the Wrestle Talk podcast. I want to go ahead and bring on our good friend, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Big Daddy P. Go ahead and hit that intro music, Hardcore Hoss. Hello. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy P. We would would not have a Wrestle Talk podcast. It would not be a complete show without having you here on the program tonight. A little bit later than normal, but that's all right because we've got the one and only Big Daddy P here tonight. How are you doing, Perry?
I'm doing great, brother. You doing all right?
I got to tell you, it's been a great show here tonight. And like I said, right now, AEW is keeping us on pins and needles. We got Jon Moxley and MJF going back and forth here. But like I said, right now, we're going to be talking about that in the next few minutes. Right now, we need to be talking about those snippets of truth. I got to tell you, we've had some people bring up some things here. I know we had Sister Haas was talking about some family issues. Hardcore, I know you might want to talk about that a little more, possibly. We also got, like I said, I had a friend of mine last week who lost their brother. As you know, the Night Owl is still taking care of some family matters as it relates to the passing of his grandmother. I was kind of scanning through here real quick. I just got to throw it out here. A lot of things going on in the world, Big Daddy P, but I just want to see how things are going on in your part of the world here this evening.
Well, right now I'm trying to connect to Wi-Fi so I can get better. Is my audio okay?
We're hearing you just fine. I mean, again, your video is a little bit choppy, but we can still hear you 100% right here tonight.
Okay, good. Why don't you just keep this picture instead, and then that should drop down the bandwidth a bit.
All right. Well, like I said, we've got those several that are here.
Are you still having some technical difficulties? It's fortunate because I know he wants to give us that info. It just it's frustrating when your Wi-Fi is not working. You know.
And like I said, Big Daddy, are you there?
Finish 037.
I'm trying to connect to the Wi-Fi here, and I am connected. So this should get better very quickly. I apologize, guys.
Oh, that's no problem,
Right.
Daddy P. You're here, and that's the biggest thing is you're able to be a part of the Wrestle Talk podcast. Real quick here, let me go ahead real quick. I think we just had some more stuff pop up here. We had another one from Aaron Lawrence. His son is struggling with the loss of his grandfather. Another one that's out there. Again, we've had several different requests. Just going to kind of throw things to you here tonight. I know you've been able to listen to parts of the program. And why don't you go ahead and lay a little bit of truth on us here tonight?
Well, first of all, as you already know, time is running out. And there will come a point in time where the church itself, those who have put their faith and trust in Christ, will be taken away from here, and we will not experience what the rest of the world is going to experience. So I want to encourage you that if you put your faith and trust in Christ, that, my friend, everything will work itself out just great. I know that with all the troubles and everything going on, not only just personally for people, but just in business in general, people want to it's very easy to get discouraged. But be encouraged, because our Lord and Savior overcame this world. Greater is he who is in me than who's in this world. Why? Because that's the way he set it out. And the only way I needed to acquire that is by hearing about the gift of salvation. You know, the fact remains is, over 2,000 years ago, God solved the sin problem. And so we're fortunate that at a time like now that we have the filling of the Spirit, that we have the completed Bible. The poor Apostle Paul, he didn't have the Bible. He had no idea what was going to take place, except for the vision that the Lord gave him, which became revelation, singular, one revelation. It was one vision, specifically detailing to what was going to take place. So I just want to encourage you that no matter how intense things get, no matter how crazy things get, don't forget that God is still in control. Even in your circumstances, whatever it might be, financially, physically, mentally, work, whatever it is, trust him. You can not only trust him for salvation, but you can trust him with your life. And I think where we fail as followers is to include him and to trust him. We want to try and do it ourselves, and it's just a bad formula. The best formula for success is putting your faith and trust in him in all situations, because he's God and we're not.
More also, by the way, we just had them literally pop in seconds ago. Another one, we had one gentleman who's having a procedure done Thursday, and the other one is our first hour guest, Stuart Kemp, talking about his wife having to start cancer treatments this week. So, I mean, again, they just keep on coming, man. They really do.
And again, remember, 1 Thessalonians 4:11 says, make it your ambition to live a quiet life. Means don't be a gossiper going around causing all kind of trouble. It says, mind your own business and work with your hands as we've commanded you. So let's work with our hands. Let's take these prayer requests. Let's take all these things that we want to petition him and send them up to him. And I can assure you, not only is he faithful and just to have these things come to pass, but we have an opportunity right now to show others that we're not alone. And I think that's what makes this segment so special, because it stops the mundane, the things which you do every week, and it gives you a chance. Every time I read Ecclesiastes, I always think about where it says, in the days of prosperity, be happy. But in the days of adversity, consider. Why are we going through what we're going through? And many times we go through things, especially all these prayer requests and these situations where we just don't know what else to do. So the good news is we can rely on him, and we can send the prayers up to him. So let's do that. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready if you are, good sir.
Father God, we can never thank you enough for your faithfulness and for your love and for your grace and for your mercy. Father, you know every request that's come in regarding physical issues, regarding financial issues, regarding health issues, issues regarding cancer and surgeries and recovery. Father, the list is actually endless. If they knew how many requests that actually are being made right now, they have no clue. Just because someone puts it on a message means there's people out there who are listening to this show right now who did not put a request, but they have one. So we don't want to miss out on you either. So Father God, you know all these requests, you know all these needs. I just pray that you give peace and comfort to each and every one of them. Father, you know the plans that you have for us. And I'm so thankful that even through all these situations that we can come to you, because you're the one who wrote the words, come to me who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So Father, for Timothy, for all those, and even for the situation that's going to take place Thursday, Father, we know that you're the great physician. We know you're the great healer. So I just pray that you would continue to do your miraculous healings throughout this world. Father, it blows my mind, even the testimony today that I received from Barbara about the doctor asking for a second scan because he just doesn't know what happened to the cancer. I can tell you what happened to the cancer. He took it away because he is faithful. So those that are battling with physical and mental and health issues, Father, I pray that you would touch their bodies, that you would continue to give them comfort. And we thank you so much. We pray for Renee that you would continue to strengthen his family and all the requests from last week, Father, that you answered. Thank you so much for what you continue to do. And we love you, and we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
All right, Big Daddy P, again, you bring the message each and every week. You bring, as the name says, the snippets of truth. And again, the Wrestle Talk podcast wouldn't be the same without you here each and every week.
Well, I'm thankful that even after I'm long and gone, these videos will still be here to remind people that even in the midst of adversity and craziness, that God is still in control. And if you can hear my voice, he can use you too. So don't you think that your infirmities or things that you think you can't do, God can't use you, because if he can use an ass like me, he can use anybody. Capiche?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how much you can wrap that up any better than that. Big Daddy P, thank you for coming on the program, and we look forward to seeing you right back here next week with some more snippets of truth.
Love you guys. See you later.
See you, Big Daddy P. Gentlemen, I got to tell you right now, it's been a great show. Hardcore Ross, any final thoughts tonight?
Oh, just a great show. You know, I really enjoyed being back here and being back at the controls. You know, and, you know, it was great meeting you, Justin.
Yeah,
and,
nice to meet you.
look forwards to working with you a little more, and just look forwards to the next show. And
Okay, Justin, any final thoughts from you?
Well, I wish we could get more high spot stuff in next go around. We had Bray Wyatt talking on Friday Night SmackDown. We had Brock and Bobby brawling last night. We had a U.S. title match with Riddle and Rollins with Elias interfering.
And you got to look at too. You also got to look at Mustafa Ali as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on with the WWE US Championship. And another one to look at too is the idea of what's up with the Kingdom, OGK, whatever you're going to call them. They're making their appearance into AEW back on Rampage. Could they be the next ones in line to be possibly going after FTR? I mean, there's a lot of great things that are happening in the world of pro wrestling, but where you're going to see a lot of great things happening? That's right here every Tuesday night on the Wrestle Talk podcast. We want to thank all of our great viewers. We also want to thank our great sponsors. Again, without our sponsors, the Wrestle Talk podcast does not exist each and every week. We're going to go ahead and send a special shout out to all of our great sponsors. You're going to see them in just a moment here on the bottom of the screen. I want to thank Royal Mills Transportation, long-term sponsor of the Wrestle Talk podcast. Rathbun Engraving, you can get one of those great Wrestle Talk podcast mugs available for $20. I believe it's for $5 more. You can get your own name engraved on it. Nobleman's Barber Lounge in Kansas City, Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall, Interstate 70 Sports Media with the maestro Jeremy Karp, who's going to be sitting alongside me this Friday night at Dynamo Pro Wrestling, the Little Popeye Designs, home of those great Wrestle Talk podcast tumblers, and of course the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. Gentlemen, I got to tell you, from top to bottom, a great night. I'm going to put it real simple here to wrap it all up tonight. One thing you're going to remember from tonight's show, episode 415. Justin, one thing you're going to take from tonight's show.
I'm 2-0, baby.
Simple as that. Hardcore Hoss, one thing you're going to take from this week.
Oh, just our wonderful guests,
You know something? I'm going to put it this way. It's going to sound kind of cheesy, but it's the truth. Let's talk wrestling. It's as simple as that. Want to say thank you to Stuart Kemp. Want to say thank you to H.D. Daniels. Want to say thank you to Sister Haas. Want to say thank you to Big Daddy P. Want to say thank you to Justin Wade joining us again this week. Want to say thank you to the returning Hardcore Haas sitting back behind the controls. And of course, I want to say thank you to all the great viewers, all the great podcast sponsors. Without you, this program doesn't continue to exist. We got a lot of great guests still to come here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Justin?
One more thing. I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of this show. It really means a lot. Makes me, Luke, it's been a long time since we've got to talk a lot. We've been, I just enjoy this, and thank you for making me part of this. And thank you, Renee, as well, for letting me be a part of this team.
And you know something, guys? We talk about the Wrestle Talk podcast becoming bigger and bigger every day. Justin Wade talking about all that great Lucha Libre action out on the West Coast. We've got Hardcore Hoss always talking about WDWA. We've got great things here in the Midwest. We've got professional wrestling all across this country and all across the world that we talk about each and every week right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Local, national, international wrestling, you name it, from top to bottom, you can experience it right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. We look forward to seeing you here next Tuesday night from 7 to 9 right here. And again, as you see here, Susie Haas giving you some shout outs too, Justin, right here on the program. I want to say thank you to everybody who took part in the program. Make sure to share the Wrestle Talk podcast. We're going to have a lot of great guests. We're getting ready to get into the winter season, but you know one thing, even though it might be cold outside, the wrestling and the wrestling ring action is still very hot all across the world. For Justin Wade, for Hardcore Hoss, this is Luke Roberts. We look forward to seeing you right back here next Tuesday night as a part of the Wrestle Talk podcast. Take care, and we'll see you next Tuesday night.